This is a 2008 Dodge Ram. It's a 2500. It's got the 5.7 Hemi engine in it, and it has a bad water pump. And this is a pretty typical repair, and this is going to apply to pretty much all the Ram trucks with the 5.7, maybe even the Durangos. There might be some subtle changes, but for the most part it's going to be a very similar repair. This is the water pump pulley right here, the serpentine belt. The back side of it rides on here. Here's your fan. There's your nut for your fan. If you watch, if I can hold this still, if you watch that pulley, I'm just going to wiggle the fan a little bit here. You can see there's quite a bit of play in the bearing of the water pump. So let's go ahead and change it. Okay, to get at this water pump, the shroud is going to have to come off. The fan's going to come off. And it looks like to get the shroud off, I'm going to take this coolant reservoir slash washer solvent tank off. There's a couple little electrical connectors down here at the bottom. They got those red locking tabs on them. Couple of 10mm bolts here on top. We got the hose over here for the overflow, and then there's a hose down here for the washer. See if I can find something to plug that so I can unhook that hose. Vacuum cap would work perfect, but I have some and I don't know where they're at. So if you don't plug it, you'll just lose all your washer solvent. Shit, I dropped it. It doesn't fit. All right. In order to get the fan shroud off, the fan has to come off because it lines up with the shroud. There's a couple ways to get this off. For anybody that's doing this at home that maybe doesn't have all the essential tools, I bought this 1.5-inch wrench way back when I worked at the Dodge dealer, and this was on the second generation Dodge trucks, the 94 through 2001 Dodge trucks. It's 1.5 inches. It doesn't fit real tight, but it doesn't have to because it's such a big nut on that fan. And what I would do is I would put that on there, and then I would take a hammer and I would just smack it. And as you can see by all the marks on there, I've used this tool quite a bit. You got to leave the serpentine belt on because that provides a little bit of tension, enough so that to hold the fan. But I mean, it might take, you know, sometimes it comes off in a couple whacks, sometimes it takes a half a dozen hits on this wrench to get that off. I'm going to go about it a little bit easier and faster here. If you have an air hammer, put a chisel bit in it. And this will take it off real quick. Put your chisel bit on that nut. Like that. They actually sell a tool that goes in that air hammer, and it's the wrench that I just showed you, but the end of it goes in the air hammer. I'd like to get one, but as easy as it is to just take it off like that, I just can't see spending the $250 on that kit. Alright, our fan is off. Ta-da! Okay, let's pull this fan shroud off. 13 millimeter. There's a 13 millimeter. Let me move you here a little bit. There's a 13 millimeter right here, and there's one on the other side as well. And there's 4 anchor points for this. But the bottom ones, they just sit in a little groove. You just take these two 13s out, and this should pop right up out of there. It should. Notice I said it should. Things don't always go as they should. Okay, now I've already done this, but I'll show you this. Down here on the driver's side bottom of the radiator, there's a nut right here. That's your petcock. I already pulled mine out and let it drain, so I've already drained the system. And that coolant looks a little funky down there. So here we go. One little tip I'd give anybody is if you're not familiar with the belt routing, just take a photograph of it. Or Google it, whatever you want, whatever's your fancy, but this is real easy, real simple. The spring-loaded tensioner, and I'll show you, let me grab my 3/8 drive ratchet. Or the serpentine tool. You can use a ratchet. This isn't going to work in there, is it? Yeah, here we go. You can use a ratchet, or you can use a belt tool if you have one. If you don't have one, just use a ratchet. Push the tensioner, it'll be clockwise, push it towards the engine. And a real, I guess it's a rule of thumb, but anybody that's done this, it's easiest to slide a serpentine belt off of a smooth pulley rather than a groove pulley. And what I mean by that is, this is a groove pulley on the tensioner itself, and this is a smooth pulley on the idler, smooth pulley on the water pump. There's no groove, so put a little tension on there, slide it off the smooth pulley, let it go, let it relax. You can slide it off there, but ooh, look at that. Well, that sucks. You know, that's what I thought was bad when the water pump went bad. I wonder if the water pump's been bad for a long time, and yeah, that's the noise I was hearing. I actually told one of my friends, I said, I need a idler pulley for my truck. And he said, oh, you probably need a water pump. And I said, shut up, the idler pulley's like $15. And I guess we were both right. So, we're going to go ahead and change out the water pump, but I'm going to have to get an idler pulley. That is garbage. Oh, yeah, you can see that's falling right apart. Bearings are gone. That's a cheap part though. So. While I was looking at that, there's the tensioner here, then down below it there's a steel. That was a plastic or composite idler pulley. There's a steel one. Listen to this one. That doesn't sound very good either. It's not that loose, but it sure doesn't sound good. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off as well because I'm going to get another one. Both of those are just 13 millimeter heads on the bolts, so figure while I'm in here I might as well replace them both. And we'll pull this tensioner out of the way. Oh, that's a 15. Okay, there's our water pump. Let's go ahead and we're going to unhook these two hoses right here. We'll unhook the lower hose, the upper hose over here where the thermostat's at. We'll pull this bracket off and we'll get this thing out of here. Maybe I'll get that thing out of there. Let's see if I can get this. I'm going to have to... So I pulled all the hoses off. All the hoses are disconnected. And I set the new pump right here. If you're ever doing a water pump that you haven't done before and you're not familiar with, it's good to have a visual reference. So as I'm pulling the bolts out of this pump down here, and maybe the pump might be stuck. I mean, this one probably won't because it's a rubber O-ring gasket, but maybe the pump on a different, engine might be stuck and you're not sure. Do they get them all out? Should I pry on it? Should I hit it with a hammer? Take a look at your new pump, and it's a great visual reference for all the bolt holes. Like, looking down here, I can't see these bottom two holes here. I can see this one here, but I can't see these two. I know they're there. I'm looking at the new ones. So I just set that up there. I don't always do it if it's something I'm familiar with, but it's a good reference. Gives you something to look at to see, let you know where you're at. So let's go ahead and get this pump out of there. It looks like just about everything on it is 13 millimeters, so I'm going to pull this bracket off first. Okay. There's one way under here. I can't see it. I know it's under there somewhere. There it is. I got my socket stuck. That was not supposed to happen. Because now it's going to fall. I know it's going to fall right into the coolant bucket. So use the short. Oh, there we go. Use a short socket. Don't use a deep socket on this bolt back here. This was completely unnecessary. Damn it. All because I thought I could get it off of there. There. That's a long bolt. Don't use a deep socket. Use a shallow socket on that one. Don't do what I did. And if you have one of these wobble extensions, that'll make it nice, because then if you're not straight on the bolt, it'll still work with you and give you enough play to get it off of it. Or not. Yep, looks like it does. Did not want this thing falling off, did they? And this stud is a 15 millimeter, so all 13s, 115 it looks like. Okay, so let's recap here. Oh, there's the next one. Put a little bit of tension on here. Oh yeah, Hey, make sure your catch pan is ready. This is a rubber O-mount style, so it comes off relatively easy. Alright, I'm going to clean it up, and I'm going to put the new pump on in the opposite order you just watched me unbolt it from. I'll hook the hoses up, and I'll fill it with coolant, but I can't ship it tonight. I gotta replace those two idler pulleys. The new water pump is bolted in place. I didn't feel the need to film it since it was the exact reverse of unbolting it, and it was quite simple. One thing to note here, right here where the upper radiator hose attaches is where your thermostat goes, and now it would be a good time to replace your thermostat while you've got to, you got it all pulled apart. It's also a good time to take a look at your hoses, make sure your clamps aren't falling apart, make sure that everything's sealing good, make sure that none of the heater hoses are dry rotted or cracking or anything like that. Right down here on the old water pump, this is the thermostat housing. I'm really surprised. You probably can't see it on camera, but this thing moves so much, and I just can't believe it wasn't just pouring coolant everywhere. But there you can see the thermostat right there. And I bought the thermostat about a year ago because my truck was running a little warm when I had the snowplow on the front of it. All the other Dodges I've had, other plow trucks I should say, never overheated going down the highway with a plow on. But this particular one was overheating, so I assumed that the thermostat was probably aging, and I picked up a new one, and before I got around to installing it, I was talking to some other owners of Ram trucks of this body style, and they all said the same thing. You have to find the sweet spot angle in the plow and whatnot when you're carrying it down the highway to keep the truck cool, which is, I guess it's kind of understandable with that big wind sail up in the front blocking the wind, but again, you're cruising down the road at such a speed you'd think there'd be enough air. But anyway, I went ahead and installed the new thermostat in the other one anyway, so I'm going to pull this off. There's two 13mm bolts, and then I'll just put this, it's an O-ring gasket just like the pump is, so it's real easy to clean up. I'll put this on, and I guess I'll have to finish this video tomorrow. I'll have to go to the parts store tomorrow and pick up some new pulleys. Okay, I'm back at it. You didn't even miss me, did you? Right. Here's the two pulleys right here. I picked these up from the auto parts store, and I picked this up. You're probably wondering what it is. I'll show you. When I went to put this tensioner on, see if I can get my camera to focus here. It's not going to focus. I don't know if you can see it, but when I tighten it down, a crack appeared right there. The tensioner still works. I mean, it would probably be okay, but it would also probably break at the most unopportune time. I'd probably be 200 miles away from home dragging something back that I found on Craigslist or something. So I thought, while I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and replace the tensioner too. So let's finish this job up. Okay, now if I can remember how this belt went on. Like this, like this, like this. Like that. That's going to go down there. Remember earlier when I said take a picture of it so you don't forget it? Yeah. Oh, what the heck? What's going on here? Mount it. I think I got it. Remember I said it's easiest to slip the belt over a smooth pulley than it is a ribbed pulley. Sometimes that absolutely applies. Sometimes it's your preference. In this case it's a preference because the tensioner moves plenty. Yeah, of course it's not going to work that way. Let me do this. I'll pull it off the water pump so I can put it on this little pulley so my tensioner tool isn't in the way. It's very important to make sure that the belt is seated on all the grooved pulleys correctly, because if it's up on one of the edges here, it'll actually shred, it'll cut the belt right down the center. And we're good. Okay. Let's get the hoses hooked up, get some coolant in this, put the fan shroud back on, the fan back on. All right. Whoa. All right. This fan shroud set down in those little grooves. Like that. Just like that. Put those two 13mm bolts in. The fan's a little bit difficult to line up, but not terrible. Just line it up on that spline, on that threaded shaft on the end of the pump. Spin it on, and then you can do the same thing that I talked about before. You can put the wrench on there and just smack it a couple times. It doesn't have to be crazy tight. The direction that the engine spins is going to want to tighten the fan all the time that it's running, but I'm going to hit it with the Burt gun just because I have it. It's easy. Okay, let's put the coolant tank back in. I couldn't stop all the washer solvent from coming out of it, so I drained it, most of it anyways. I drained it out. Let me find the line before I drop this thing down in there. hose up. And this thing just has these two little plastic tabs on the bottom. There's holes cut in the fan shroud. It just slides right down into those. I almost feel like it's easier if that the guy took the time to take the air cleaner housing out. There we go. Fell right into place. There's two little electric plugs down here. One's for the washer pump, and the other one is for the coolant level in the coolant reservoir. Make sure you plug those back in. Little 10mm head bolts here, and we're ready for coolant. Alright, that's it. Let's put some coolant in this thing. For filling up the coolant system, I have this tool called an airlift. A lot of you guys probably have it. It's awesome. This is what I bought this probably, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Airlift. And what it does is it puts the whole coolant system in a vacuum. It'll actually suck in the whole, it'll draw about 26 inches of vacuum into the whole system. It'll suck all of the hoses flat, and it's kind of neat because it'll fill the coolant system up without leaving any air pockets in there, so you don't got to worry about working the air pockets out. But it'll also tell you if you've got any major leaks, because it won't draw vacuum if there's a big leak. Now it will sometimes. It's vacuum, not pressure, so it can mess with you sometimes. If you've got an O-ring or something that's messing up, sometimes it'll draw vacuum, but yet once you put it under pressure it'll still leak. But generally speaking, this will get you pretty close to where you need to be. So I've got this down past the overflow tube. I got it tightened down so it's snug. It's just a big rubber. As you tighten it up, the rubber swells up and seals. This is your vacuum tube. I've got the end of it into my overflow just in case it sucks up any residual coolant. We're going to apply chopped air to this. I'm not sure if you can see that needle moving or not, but we're already in the green. So I'm going to suck it down until it stops moving. About 25. Let's see if you can see this as well. Look at the radiator hose. If you can see it, look at it. It's completely flat. It's sucked all the air right out of it. The whole system is in a vacuum, and we are at, we're about 27, so we're good. So I'm going to shut off the vacuum. Disconnect the hose. I'm going to pull this hose right off of here because we don't need it anymore. I like to use a clear jug. This is an old juice jug here. That way I can see my level. Because as you suck this coolant back into the engine, you're going to have to refill this a couple times. So this is, it's got a little screen filter on the end of it. Stick it all the way down to the bottom. And then I jam a funnel in there. We're going to hook this up. Now all I got to do is open that valve. The whole system is under vacuum right now. It's still right where you looked at. It's about 27 inches of vacuum. You'll see this go down. So let's open it up. And the vacuum that's stored in the engine and the entire coolant system of the vehicle is actually drawing the coolant in. I like to stop when it gets probably right about to there, and I'm going to refill it. I used to fill it without stopping, but what happens is you're making a lot of bubbles in there, and the tube will ingest a lot of bubbles, and then you end up with a little bit of air in the system. So I like to stop it and refill it a couple times, let the bubbles settle, and then open the valve back up. And I'm using the engine coolant that you can mix with any kind of coolant. This is 5-year coolant, and that's what came out of this truck. Tap the bottle, get the bubbles up. But I'm using the all makes, all model. You can mix it with any kind. So, all right, let's open her back up. And this works great on some of the Fords, the Ford V6s, some of the GM V6s with the bleeder valves that sometimes you have to fight with to get the air out of the system. With this tool, for the most part, you don't have to do that. There's still some exceptions. I mean, there's exceptions to everything, but this tool is just awesome. I think it was like 120 bucks. It's probably over 200 by today's standards, but it was worth every penny of it. I know guys that work in diesel shops that work on the big semis that hold multiple gallons, and they use the same thing, and they swear by it. Let the air bubbles work their way up. We're down to about 20. We're down to about 18 right now, so it's starting to fill up. We're getting low on vacuum. We're down to about 8, so I'm going to top this jug off and just let it go for the last little bit. But the cool thing about using this tool is once you've filled the vacuum, or once you've filled the coolant system with this vacuum tool, you just go drive it. I mean, you don't have to worry about burping it or anything. It's good to go. There. Top off your overflow tank and you're golden. And the needle's down to about 5, and it's fluffing up. It's down to nothing now. So you'll see the level's going to give up here in a second. It'll steady out. There it is. Now the whole system's full of coolant. Disconnect the hoses. We are good to go. Yeah, it's just a rubber. As you tighten this down, that rubber swells up to fill the gap. Okay. And it's neat because you look down in it, and the coolant is right up to the bottom of that tool. So when you pull that tool out of the radiator, the coolant level's right there. See if I can pour some in this overflow tank without spilling it everywhere. Alright, let's start it up. The engine bay is a lot quieter with those new bearings and new pulleys, new bearings, and a water pump. I mean, everything was making noise. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, as my 6-year-old would say. Hey, if you like the video, give me a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe. I appreciate you watching, especially watching all the way to the end. Thank you.